Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Dolan-Del Vecchio, and I'm here with my friend and co-author and colleague, Nancy Saxton-Lopez. And we are recording this session today because it's a time where we're both engaged in a lot of travel. So we're going to put this episode up as soon as we can this week. And then we won't be able to be back live as we usually are on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time until September 9th. So that's the next time that we'll be live, and we'll look forward to being with you and hearing from you directly then. And in the interim, please feel free to send us any questions or comments or suggestions for topics. You can reach me at kenddv@gmail.com, and you can reach Nancy at nsaxtonlopez, Nancy's name, Saxton-Lopez, at csmpc.com. We want to let you know that this program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society in Springfield, Mass. Dakin is a 501c3 community-supported animal welfare organization that provides shelter, medical care, spay-neuter services, and behavioral rehab for more than 20,000 animals and people each year. Since its inception in 1969, Dakin has become one of the most recognized nonprofit organizations in central Massachusetts and a national leader in animal welfare. You can learn more about Dakin and make a donation at dakinhumane.org. That's DAKINHUMANE.org. And this program is all about recommendations and stories and thoughts that will hopefully be helpful to people who have recently lost a dear animal friend, or maybe it's an anniversary, or maybe something's going on that just brings the loss to mind. It is a way for us to take the information that we shared in our book, The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups, to take what we share in the book with a broader audience. And so we welcome you to this conversation. And Nancy, you want to get us started today?
Yeah, I thought you and I had talked about really kind of exploring the human-animal bond,
Right.
Which is been a very important concept that probably came out in the 80s, I believe. And there's been a lot of research done. There has been a lot of publications about the benefit that people have with animals and that animals have with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you and I have been away a little bit, and I was away last week, and I noticed, that how many people brought their dogs. Now, of course, you can't transport cats so well, but on ferries, and they were bringing them to their week or month or whatever stay on the island I was on. And we actually ran into a couple with two corgis from Texas. Now, this is in Massachusetts. So they're in Texas, and they have their own Instagram Martha's Vineyard in sight. So we talked to them for a while, but we saw Chihuahuas up to, Mastiffs. It was just amazing how many people, and it's their family member, right?
I was going to say, this is family. I was telling you, we were in Provincetown recently, and we brought Abigail to dinner with us, and she said we brought a little pad for her to sit on the chair next to us, and they brought her a nice bowl of water, and we learned that Provincetown is one of the most animal-friendly places in the United States. I can tell you that my son and his wife live in Germany, and they have a dog whose name is Bernie, and Bernie goes everywhere with them. And when I visited them in Germany, one of the things I've noticed is dogs are in all public places. They're in restaurants, they're in stores. It's very much different than here. It seems that they're just sort of more the norm. It's more the norm for them to be in public places. And it's really gratifying to see that. And a lot of people now are bringing their dogs and cats and ferrets and rabbits to their workplace.
That's right. Now, it's hard to do horses unless you work in that field.
Right.
But, and there's something on TikTok I want to mention to you, and I don't remember, it's George, Jorge, but I can't remember his last name. He sits and cuddles with his cows. So the cow is on his shoulder and they licking him. And I mean, it was just fascinating. Any kind of animal can work, right? Yeah.
Well, I think it comes down to, again, this idea that they are far more like us than many people think, who are not really close in relationship to them. And when we look into an animal's eyes, there's somebody looking back. There's a consciousness there that is not too very different from ours. I'm reading a book now called Other Minds. It's about the evolution of consciousness, and it focuses largely on octopuses.
Ooh, I did read about this, I think.
And octopuses have a very similar complexity of expressing themselves and doing things and all kinds of complicated behaviors that they're engaged in. And when they are either close to people in their natural environment, so scuba divers who are very interested in researchers who spend time with them, or if they're in labs where they're in aquariums, they exhibit extraordinarily complex and creative behaviors that we would say are playful, that are extraordinarily intelligent, and they're very, very different from us in terms of their neurological makeup. They have a brain, and then they have many subbrains that are located in their 8 tentacles. And there's lack of clarity from a human perspective on the degree to which the brain actually, the main brain in their head, is really in control of orchestrating in the same way that we orchestrate our limbs. But they have a consciousness where they track with their eyes and they touch and taste people. And so, I mean, many different life forms, many different paths of evolution, and we still have these extraordinary similarities, and we recognize the other in each other in ways that are recognizable to us.
Which is so fascinating, right, when you really get into this. And I think there's been more and more research. So what I sent you, we were talking about this. There is a definition. Now, the HABRI, I don't know if they say HABRI, I don't know, but that's the Human Animal Bond Research Institute, defines the human animal bond is a mutually beneficial and dynamic relationship between people and animals that is influenced by behaviors that are essential to the health and well-being of both. The emotional, psychological, and physical connections people have with animals and the environment, you would talk about the environment a lot, are also incorporated into the definition of the human-animal bond. So we do desire secure connections, and we will seek attachment from inanimate objects and or living organisms. But in this case, we seek out, but they seek out, dogs and cats seek us out too.
Sure.
They want to be connected. They get as much from us as we get from them.
Sure. And it's interesting what you said, that like I have a real strong connection to my tractor.
Yes, that's right. The cars. We all like our cars, right?
But
the tractor, right.
And I could even say, I will admit, I love my tractor. My tractor is a lot of fun, but it's very different than my connection to Abigail, my little dog, or to Esme, my cat. And so that's really vital to keep in mind, that we have attachments to objects, but they do not rival the attachments we have to other living beings.
Right.
And there's just no comparison. And something to keep in mind, because it's at the very heart of the bond that there's somebody else who is engaged in the relationship. There's something happening. It's a mutuality, as you were just describing. It's a symbiosis as you were describing.
And we get a lot of benefits, right? Now,
absolutely.
But we get our physical health is better. You know, there has been a lot of information on cardiac folks.
Yeah, blood pressure comes down
Right.
when we're petting an animal. Our cortisol levels, the stress hormone, is reduced when we're engaged closely with an animal friend. Absolutely.
In fact, this research institute found out that there were it was probably $11.7 billion in savings from people who have pets as opposed to those who don't.
Wow. So medical care savings?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So,
Makes sense.
and 85 million families in the United States have pets and gain those benefits. Now, of course, they give us unconditional love. They give us companionship. They don't care what we look like or how much money we have or what we drive or any of that stuff. They just depend on us to give them what they need, which helps us. We'd have to take a responsibility for that, right?
Sure.
We talked a lot about this on these episodes that, you know, just to get a pet, like, you know, for years it was difficult because Easter would come and people would say, let's get a chick or let's get a bunny.
Yeah.
Not realizing how much work it is.
And how you've got to have a whole setup for them. You've got to have an environment for them to live comfortably and in sanitary conditions. And you never want to have, for example, one chick because they're intensely social and they need to be in a flock. They need to feel others around them. I wanted to just say also that when you talk about the health benefits and the healthcare spend reduction, you know, loneliness is thought to be one of the most impactful stressors that exist, and there's a loneliness epidemic that's been expanding for some time. But loneliness is thought to be more stressful than things like smoking, and you know, really, really profoundly detrimental to our health. And of course, an animal companion alleviates loneliness in a significant way. It's not the same exactly as having human connections, but it can be really important in many people's lives.
Well, also, sometimes our human connections aren't the best. I mean, let's just be honest with that, okay? You can have fights with humans, you know, they walk out or you get pissed off or they can be insulting or whatever that is. I'm not saying all that happens.
No, I often say some of my favorite people aren't people.
Right. So, I mean, I will say this though, and dogs, you know, don't get mad. You know, they love you unconditionally. They can have a little bit of an attitude. I remember that when we went away one year and Rosie, one of our pugs that we had at the time, was mad at us, right? She was mad at us because we knew she was mad at us when we came home because the bed had just been redone and everything was clean and she got on the bed and peed on it.
Oh, cats are famous for doing that kind of thing, right? My cats have done unspeakable things to our upholstery and bedding in the past.
So, but all in all, you know, you certainly, the relationship with an animal is certainly different than the relationship with any human being. And I think that that's what gives people so much peace and calmness and connection and love and companionship, because all they just want to do is to be with you.
Yeah, you know, it's the heart of this idea of therapeutic pets who are
animal-assisted therapies.
Yeah, who are animal companions and are trained to be therapeutic in the person's life. I mean, I've known veterans, for example, combat veterans who come to work with their animal therapy companion. I'm not sure I have the right language. And we had a couple who were with us on the broadcast not too long ago, and they had lost one of the partners' therapy animal companions. And so this is very, very important in many people's lives. And as you said, it is a compassionate, loving bond that is non-judgmental, that is present for you, and really incredibly healing for many, many people.
Many people. And it lessens anxiety, it lessens depression, it creates people to be more social, more physical.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get into, we were talking about the therapies, animals that would help open doors or
Yeah.
be insightful to a seizure coming on.
Yeah.
Or, and initially, years ago, we did a group at the Seeing Eye in
Mm-hmm.
Morristown. And can you imagine having that animal who is your eyes,
Yeah.
for a period of their lifetime, and then they die?
Yeah.
And so that connection, that they've had, it's not only the love and the caring, and the compassion, and the comrade, the person, the animal who's helping you.
Yeah.
See. And then
Massive service for you, and the level of trust that you develop, I imagine, with that kind of a service animal is just deep as it can be.
Right. And even though we all obviously suffer greatly when our animals die.
Well, one of the things that when I learned about animals that were therapeutic companions, what I immediately started thinking is, aren't they all?
Yeah, right.
They all help feels us. That way to me. I'll admit that for myself. They all are.
Well, they create us to have a better quality of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
We actually can give them a good quality of life, but they give us a really good quality of life. So, and enhances our well-being, our wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like they're definitely family. I mean, they're definitely family, and that idea of the bond, it's very interesting to me when I think about people who don't have animal companions. I wonder, we all find our own path in life, but it makes me feel a bit sad, as though they're perhaps missing out on something that's really fundamental.
Well, I think that's what we used to talk about in the group, because some people we know just are not animal folks. They're not interested in it, and that's fine, right? For us animal people, we're like, God, you may be missing something,
Well, another thing that always strikes me is how they ground us in the relationship that we have with the rest of nature. And that when we have animal companions in our life, we are tied to the natural world in a more significant way, perhaps, than if we don't.
Right.
And I just think that that's so important, particularly in this time when civilization is so broken when it comes to our relationship with the natural world and how
with our environment.
Yeah, there's just so much that we need to do to reconnect and to be in communion, as opposed to the illusion of being dominant over the natural world. I mean, one of the things that I think it's vitally important for human beings to understand is that without the natural world being sound and in harmony, we can't make it. We're not going to survive. Exactly. And this whole idea that somehow we can control, we are part of it. We're in communion with the natural world, whether we like it or recognize it or embrace it. That's the way it is. We're part of this system here. We're part of this planetary system. And I always see animals as a link, companion animals as the bridge in many ways. And they, for example, my chickens live in very close, tight proximity. They're engaged with nature all the time. They're eating nature all the time, and they're generating for me the elements of compost, and how important. And I just see that in such an important connection. And of course, my dogs, they're part of us.
Right. And it's, I was trying to figure out what word that I could use that connection. It's almost like we're soulmates. Maybe that's a word to use.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, we're just so incredibly connected. The other thing, like you were saying, that they ground us in the environment, they also ground us, meaning even if you have a bad day, even if you are, upset about something, even if you don't feel well, you have to get up and you have to take care of them. I mean, and they're just looking at you like, okay, are we eating?
And if you're really stressed out and you pay attention to your animal friend, they're almost certainly going to help you to calm down.
Exactly.
They're almost certainly going to, if you will pay attention to them in a way that is trying to be present with them in the way that they're present, you're going to feel probably some of the anxiety alleviate.
Right.
I mean, it's also true that animals sometimes will mirror our own anxiety if we're incredibly hyper. But if we go for a walk or if we go outside with them and allow them to take the lead spiritually and emotionally, we will be brought to a place that's more calm and more grounded, as you said.
Well, they live in the moment. And I think a lot of times we as people do not live in the moment.
No, we're always in our heads.
Slow up, right. Makes you slow up, makes you get grounded, makes you be with them. And that's so healing for us.
Yeah, a mind can be a terrible thing, To quote Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, true. So they do so many good things for us. But I also, again, want to point out that we do good things for them too. I mean, obviously there are some situations that's not the case. And then hopefully those animals are removed, and help to heal.
Well, there's this whole sad thing that's going on right now in the COVID times where people adopted animals because they were lonely or they needed a distraction, and now there's too many of those animals who are being given up again. And so it's something to keep in mind that when you adopt an animal, it should be for good, right? I mean, it should be, and of course, sometimes it's unavoidable.
Sometimes
illness strikes or the situation changes drastically, and it's not possible to care for them anymore. But one of the things that's so important is to take the responsibility greatly serious, because it is a very serious responsibility.
Well, it's the same thing we were talking before about the chicks and the bunnies. I mean, it can't be. You don't want it to be an impulse buy.
No.
You want it to be to really think about.
No.
Do you have the time? Do you have the energy? Do you have the money? Do you have? I mean, do you have someone that can help you? Because everyone should have the benefit of an animal. However, there are other ways to do that besides ownership per se.
Yep.
But you want to make sure that you have the ability to really put your heart and soul into taking care of this. Because they use us so much.
They do. So we should probably wrap up.
Okay.
Because I know your time is short actually today, and so we want to bring this to a close. And it's just it's so enlivening, I think, just to talk about what animals do for us, and what it means to look in their eyes and just know that you've got this connection with this other loving, living, very sentient being who is part of your life. There's nothing like it.
And then so we can understand, and that's why we wrote the book about how hard that is when they die.
Yeah.
Or they're not able to be here anymore.
Yep.
So we understand that because we are animal lovers ourselves and have been for a long time.
So we wish you a good period of time. We'll be back on September 9th. Okay. And again, feel free to send us your questions, comments, your suggestions. We're always happy to be in dialogue with folks who are part of the audience.
Of course. Take care, everyone.